How's it going, guys? I'm Danny, and this week, I don't have a comprehensive list of every minute detail of how to throw an upshot. I just have everything you need to know. So upshots. I have a lot of material for this video and not a lot of time because I try to keep my videos pretty short. So I'm gonna go fairly quickly. The first is disc selection. I know a lot of people tend to throw their most overstable mid-range or a really overstable disc on an upshot. Now the problem with this is it's not versatile. I like to throw a Warden for all of my upshots, and that's because it's a very versatile disc. I can throw a hyzer with it, I can throw a straight shot with it, or I can throw an anhyzer with it. I can make this disc do whatever I need to for an upshot, and that means I throw the same disc every time, and I'm gonna know how to make this disc work on a subconscious level. It's also a reliable disc. I don't want to throw something too understable because anytime the wind kicks up, it's not going to perform correctly. Moving on to grip. The grip I use for upshots is a control grip. I like to think of it as a power grip, except rather than all of my fingers holding the disc into my palm, just 2 fingers are. I fan my middle 2 fingers out. Another way to think of it is grabbing the disc with the pinky and the pointer finger and fanning the other 2 fingers out on the bottom of the disc. Now I use this grip because the release point is the same as a power grip. I use a power grip for all of my high power shots, and there my release point is this first knuckle here on my pointer finger. That's the last point of contact the disc has with my hand. And on this control grip, the release point is the same. And that means my accuracy and my muscle memory is going to be consistent on a subconscious level. I don't have to think about my accuracy. I'm just going to let myself throw the disc, and that's where it's going to pop out. Now, I fan a couple of the fingers out so it doesn't require quite as much force to pop out of my hand. If I threw a power grip on all of my upshots, I would have to throw them pretty hard to get them to pop out of my hand like they're supposed to. Whereas if I take 2 of those fingers and don't use that pressure against my palm, the disc is going to pop out a lot easier, and that's going to let me control the power a lot better. Now, as far as form, my form when I'm throwing an upshot is very similar to my driving form, except it's a lot more compact and a lot more short. I generally don't reach back quite as far. I turn my shoulders just a little bit away from the target, and I extend the disc not much past the left side of my chest. I make sure and get my hand on the outside, and for my shot, I make sure and still make this power pocket here. And when I'm throwing, I spin the disc as much as possible. Now this is going to give the disc a lot of gyroscopic stability. So towards the end of its flight, the nose is going to pop up and it's going to fade right at the pin. Now for shot selection. When throwing an upshot, a lot of people tend to just throw an overstable disc on a really big hyzer. This is not very consistent because the disc is coming in at a sharp angle. It might stick, or it might skip, or it might roll away, or it might, if the basket's on a hill, it could do a lot of different things. So a lot more consistent upshot is a slight hyzer, but a mostly straight shot that just fades a little bit at the end towards the basket. This is going to settle on the ground a lot better. It's not going to have as much speed coming in, and it's going to be a lot more consistent and a lot more accurate. If I'm looking at an upshot and I have a right to left wind, my regular hyzer upshot is going to get the wind underneath it, and it's going to push it too far left. So in that situation, I might throw a straight shot, or I might throw a forehand just to keep the wind coming against the top of the flight plate so it pushes the disc down and is going to make it a little bit more accurate. I know a lot of people, when they throw their upshots, they tend to pick some leaves on a tree or something up and to the right of the basket, and they think, I'm going to throw it at that and the disc is going to fade at the pin. I don't like to think this way when I'm aiming my upshot. I like to aim at the pole. That's because if I'm aiming at the pole in my head and I miss by 1 or 2 feet, I'm going to miss by 1 or 2 feet and it's still a tap in. But if I'm aiming at some leaves up on a tree and I miss by 1 or 2 feet, that could translate into 15 or 20 feet by the time it gets back to the basket. So while you do want to sort of imagine the shape that your disc is flying, it's important to, in your head, be aiming at the pole, be aiming at your final destination. And that's going to be a lot more consistent and a lot more accurate. So when I'm lining up my upshot, I'm not trying to throw the disc in. If I'm 200 feet out, the chances of me making that shot are very slim, but the chances of me throwing it a little bit too hard and a little bit too far left and having a tester putt coming back at it are very high. So I am trying to land the disc just short of the basket and slide it up to the pole. This is going to be a lot more consistent, and it's going to lower scores on the course a lot. As far as how hard to throw upshots, the only way I've found to learn this is practice. I'm really bad at thinking, I'm going to throw this one at 32.5% and the next one I'm going to throw at 40%. I don't think like that with my shot. But because I throw the same disc every time and I've been throwing this disc for a year, I know exactly how much power, how much pop I need to put on every upshot for each distance away from the basket. So it's important for me not to overthink the power level on an upshot and just sort of let my body throw it and make sure that I'm still popping it and still getting the spin on the disc. That's all I've got for this week, guys. Like I said, it's a lot of information. I tried to keep the video pretty short. For next week's video, I actually have a straw poll in the description so you can vote on which topic you want it to be. I'm excited to see what the answers are, or you can suggest new topics in the comments. Message my athlete page on Facebook if you'd like form critique or if you have any questions in general. I always like hearing what y'all have to say. And until next week, remember, slow is smooth and smooth is far.